Sarah Martinez had always been different from other kids, but she never let anyone see just how different. At 17, she was the star of her high school swimming team, known for her incredible speed and determination in the water. Her teammates admired her dedication, showing up early for practice and staying late to perfect her strokes. What they didn't know was that swimming wasn't just her passion. It was her escape, her sanctuary, and the one place where she felt truly free. The community pool where she trained had become her second home over the years. Coach Williams, a former Olympic swimmer himself, had taken Sarah under his wing when she was just 12 years old. He saw something special in her, a fire that burned brighter than most athletes he had trained. Sarah's backstroke was particularly magnificent, cutting through the water with such grace that spectators often stopped to watch her practice sessions. But Sarah carried a secret that weighed heavily on her young shoulders. Born with a rare spinal condition called spina bifida occulta, she had a distinctive birthmark and scar pattern across her lower back that told the story of multiple surgeries she had endured as a child. The condition had required several operations to prevent nerve damage, leaving her with a complex network of surgical scars that formed an almost artistic pattern across her skin. Despite what doctors had initially predicted, Sarah had defied all odds and not only learned to walk normally, but had become an exceptional athlete. Her parents, Maria and Carlos Martinez, had spent countless nights in hospital waiting rooms during Sarah's early years. They watched their daughter endure procedure after procedure with a courage that amazed medical professionals. Dr. Rebecca Chen, Sarah's longtime physician, often remarked that Sarah was one of the most resilient patients she had ever treated. The scars on her back were like a roadmap of her journey, each line representing a battle fought and won. Sarah had become an expert at hiding her back from her teammates. She always arrived at practice already changed into her swimsuit, wearing a cover-up until the last possible moment before diving into the pool. In the locker room, she was a master of strategic positioning, always facing away from others or finding creative ways to change without exposing her back. Her best friend Jessica had known her for 3 years and had never seen the scars that Sarah kept hidden beneath carefully chosen clothing. The upcoming state championship meet was just 2 weeks away, and Sarah had been training harder than ever. Her times were consistently dropping, and Coach Williams believed she had a real shot at breaking the state record in the 200-meter backstroke. The pressure was intense, but Sarah thrived under pressure. It was something she had learned to do from a very young age. Local newspapers had begun featuring articles about the promising young swimmer who might put their small town on the map. During this time, Sarah also balanced her athletic pursuits with academic excellence. She maintained a 4.0 GPA while training 6 days a week, and had already received several scholarship offers from prestigious universities. Her guidance counselor, Mrs. Thompson, often used Sarah as an example of determination and time management when speaking to other students. What nobody realized was that Sarah's drive came from a deep-seated need to prove that her physical differences didn't define her limitations. The Martinez family had always been private about Sarah's medical history. In their close-knit Latino community, they preferred to let Sarah's achievements speak for themselves rather than focusing on her challenges. Maria worked double shifts as a nurse to help pay for Sarah's training expenses, while Carlos, a construction worker, had built a small home gym in their garage where Sarah could do her strength training. They had sacrificed much to support their daughter's dreams, never once making her feel like a burden despite the medical bills and time commitments her condition required. As the state meet approached, Sarah felt a familiar mixture of excitement and anxiety. She had worked too hard and come too far to let anything stop her now. Her morning routine included visualization exercises where she imagined herself breaking through the water, her powerful strokes propelling her toward victory. She could almost hear the cheers of the crowd and feel the weight of a gold medal around her neck. This meet would be her chance to prove that she belonged among the elite swimmers in the state, regardless of what lay hidden beneath her swimsuit. The day of the state championship arrived with an energy that Sarah could feel crackling through the air. The aquatic center was packed with families, coaches, and swimmers from across the state. Banners hung from the ceiling, and the smell of chlorine mixed with the excitement of competition created an atmosphere that made Sarah's heart race. She had competed in many meets before, but nothing compared to the magnitude of this event. Sarah's parents sat in the bleachers, their faces beaming with pride as they watched their daughter warm up in the practice pool. Maria clutched her rosary beads, whispering a quiet prayer for her daughter's safety and success. Carlos held a small video camera, determined to capture every moment of what could be Sarah's breakthrough performance. They had invited extended family members, and nearly 20 relatives had made the drive to support Sarah, including her elderly grandmother who had never missed one of her important meets. Coach Williams gathered the team for their final pep talk before the events began. He looked directly at Sarah as he spoke about dedication, perseverance, and the power of believing in oneself. His words resonated deeply with Sarah, who had spent years proving to herself and others that limitations existed only in the mind. The other swimmers on her team looked up to her as a leader, and she felt the weight of their expectations along with her own dreams. The first few events passed in a blur of cheers and splashing water. Sarah watched her teammates compete, offering encouragement and support while mentally preparing for her own races. Her first event was the 100-meter backstroke, a warm-up for her main event later in the day. As she stood behind the starting blocks, Sarah felt the familiar calm that came over her before competition. This was her element, her domain where nothing else mattered except the rhythm of her strokes and the wall at the end of the pool. The race went perfectly. Sarah touched the wall nearly a full body length ahead of her closest competitor, setting a new personal best time that had Coach Williams jumping up and down on the pool deck. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Sarah felt a surge of confidence that carried her through the rest of the preliminary events. Local reporters began taking notice of the young swimmer who was dominating her events with such apparent ease. Between events, Sarah retreated to the warm-down pool area where she could stretch and prepare mentally for her main event. She had developed a ritual over the years that helped her focus. She would close her eyes and remember all the early morning practices, the pain of rehabilitation after her surgeries, and the moment she first realized she could not just swim, but excel at swimming. These memories fueled her determination and reminded her of how far she had come. Jessica found Sarah during the break between sessions, and they talked about the upcoming race. Sarah's best friend had noticed her nervous energy and tried to help her relax with jokes and lighthearted conversation. They had been through so much together over the years, and Jessica's unwavering support meant everything to Sarah. Other teammates joined them, creating a circle of encouragement that helped Sarah feel grounded and ready for the challenge ahead. As the afternoon session began, the pool deck became even more crowded with spectators and media. Sarah's event was one of the most anticipated races of the meet, as she was ranked second in the state going into the competition. The swimmer ranked first, Amanda Chen from the prestigious Riverside Academy, had already won her earlier events and was considered nearly unbeatable. But Sarah had studied Amanda's technique and race strategy, and she believed she had found weaknesses she could exploit. The call room for Sarah's event was tense with nervous energy. 8 of the fastest backstrokers in the state sat quietly, each lost in their own pre-race mental preparation. Sarah used this time to visualize her race plan one final time. A strong start, steady rhythm through the middle distance, and a powerful finishing kick that had become her signature. She touched the scars on her lower back through her warm-up suit, a private ritual that reminded her of her strength and resilience. When the officials called the swimmers to report to the marshalling area, Sarah felt ready. She had trained for this moment for years, overcoming obstacles that would have stopped many others. Her teammates formed a tunnel for her to walk through, cheering and chanting her name as she made her way to the pool deck. The energy was electric, and Sarah fed off the excitement of the crowd as she prepared for the race that could change her life forever. The pool deck fell silent as the 8 finalists were introduced to the crowd. Sarah waved to her family in the stands, drawing strength from their faces filled with love and pride. The public address announcer's voice echoed through the facility as he called each swimmer's name, accomplishments, and qualifying times. When Sarah's name was announced, the cheer from her hometown supporters was so loud it seemed to shake the building. Sarah began her pre-race routine, carefully removing her warm-up suit to reveal her competition swimsuit underneath. She had chosen a sleek blue and silver design that made her feel powerful and confident. As she bent over to adjust her goggles, preparing for the race that could define her future, disaster struck in the most unexpected way. The strap of her competition suit, weakened by years of chlorine exposure and countless hours of training, suddenly snapped under the tension. The failure was catastrophic and immediate. The top portion of Sarah's suit fell away, and in her attempt to catch it and maintain her modesty, she lost her balance. As she stumbled backward, several officials and coaches rushed forward to help. But in the chaos and confusion, someone accidentally grabbed the bottom portion of her suit while trying to steady her. In a moment that seemed to last forever, Sarah found herself partially exposed in front of hundreds of spectators, her teammates, and the media covering the event. But it wasn't the momentary exposure that caused the collective gasp from the crowd. It was what they saw on Sarah's lower back. The intricate pattern of surgical scars told a story that no one in the swimming community had known. The scars formed an almost artistic design across her skin, each line representing a battle fought and won during her childhood. Some spectators thought they were seeing an elaborate tattoo, until they realized the true nature of what was before them. The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment, Sarah felt completely vulnerable and exposed in ways that went far beyond the physical. She had spent years carefully guarding this secret, and now it was revealed to everyone who mattered in her swimming world. Tears began to form in her eyes as she imagined the pity, the questions, and the changed perceptions that would surely follow. This was supposed to be her moment of triumph, not a moment of unwanted revelation. Coach Williams was the first to react, quickly wrapping Sarah in a large towel while barking orders for officials to clear the area and give her privacy. His protective instincts kicked in immediately, and he positioned himself between Sarah and the crowd while demanding that photographers respect her dignity. The meet director announced a brief delay while Sarah was escorted to a private area to compose herself and address the wardrobe malfunction. In the quiet of the women's locker room, Sarah sat on a bench with her head in her hands, feeling like her world was crashing down around her. Maria rushed down from the stands, her motherly instincts overriding all protocol as she pushed past officials to reach her daughter. She found Sarah in a state of emotional devastation, convinced that her swimming career was over and that she would forever be known for this moment of exposure rather than her athletic achievements. Jessica arrived moments later, having fought her way through the crowd and security to be with her best friend. She sat beside Sarah, offering comfort without words, simply being present in the way that only true friends can. The three women sat together in the aftermath of what felt like a life-altering moment, trying to process what had just happened and what it would mean for Sarah's future. Outside the locker room, word was spreading quickly through the crowd about what they had witnessed. Some spectators were taking photos and videos with their phones, while others were sharing the story on social media. The narrative was already beginning to form, but it wasn't the narrative Sarah expected. Instead of pity or shock, the conversations were filled with admiration and respect for what Sarah had overcome to reach this level of competition. Dr. Chen, who had been watching the meet from the stands, made her way to the locker room to offer support. As Sarah's longtime physician, she understood better than anyone the significance of what the crowd had seen. Those scars represented not just medical procedures, but a journey of incredible courage and determination that had brought Sarah to this moment. She knew that while Sarah felt exposed and vulnerable, she had actually revealed something beautiful about the human spirit's capacity to overcome adversity. The meet officials faced a decision about whether to continue with the event or postpone Sarah's race. The other swimmers waited uncertainly on the pool deck, not sure whether to continue warming up or prepare for a delay. The crowd remained in the facility, many refusing to leave because they wanted to see what would happen next. There was a palpable sense that this moment was about much more than a swimming competition. It was about human dignity, courage, and the power of sport to reveal our deepest truths. As Sarah sat in the locker room trying to collect herself, something unexpected began happening outside. The crowd, rather than dispersing or losing interest, was growing more supportive by the minute. Spectators who had witnessed the incident were sharing stories with each other about their own challenges and those of their children. Parents of athletes with disabilities began speaking up about their admiration for what Sarah had accomplished, and word spread quickly about the true meaning behind the scars they had seen. Amanda Chen, Sarah's main rival and the swimmer expected to win the race, made a decision that would define her character forever. She walked into the locker room, still wearing her competition suit, and approached Sarah with genuine respect in her eyes. Amanda had competed against many talented swimmers, but she had never faced anyone who had overcome what Sarah had overcome just to reach the starting blocks. She sat down beside Sarah and quietly said that she would be honored to race against someone with such incredible heart and determination. The gesture broke something open in Sarah's chest. Here was her biggest competitor, someone who could have taken advantage of the situation to claim an easy victory, instead showing the kind of sportsmanship that made competition meaningful. Jessica wiped tears from her own eyes as she watched the interaction, understanding that they were witnessing something special that went far beyond swimming. Coach Williams entered the locker room with news that surprised everyone. The meet director had decided to offer Sarah several options. She could withdraw from the race with no penalty, postpone her event until later in the meet, or continue as scheduled if she felt ready. But most importantly, he wanted Sarah to know that the officials, coaches, and swimmers from other teams were unanimously supportive of whatever decision she made. The swimming community was rallying around her in a way that none of them had expected. Social media was exploding with messages of support for Sarah. Videos of her previous races were being shared along with comments about her technique, her sportsmanship, and her obvious dedication to the sport. Swimming coaches from around the country were posting about the importance of inclusion and celebrating athletes who overcome adversity. The narrative was shifting from embarrassment to inspiration, though Sarah was still too overwhelmed to fully process what was happening. Dr. Chen spoke privately with Sarah about the medical significance of what people had seen. She explained that spina bifida occulta affects millions of people worldwide, and many of them live with shame or secrecy about their condition. Sarah's moment of unwanted exposure could actually help other young people understand that physical differences don't have to limit their dreams. The doctor's words began to plant a seed in Sarah's mind about the possibility that this moment could become something positive rather than devastating. Maria held her daughter's hands and reminded her of all the times they had faced seemingly impossible challenges together. She spoke about the first time Sarah had gotten into a swimming pool after her final surgery, how terrified they had all been, and how Sarah had pushed through that fear to discover her passion and talent. This moment, Maria said, was just another challenge to overcome, and Sarah had already proven she was stronger than any obstacle life could present. The clock was ticking toward the scheduled start time for Sarah's race. She needed to make a decision about whether to compete, but more importantly, she needed to decide who she wanted to be in this moment. Would she let fear and embarrassment define her? Or would she find a way to turn this into an opportunity to show the world what she was truly made of? The choice was entirely hers, but she wasn't making it alone. Jessica reminded Sarah of all the young swimmers who looked up to her, including several from their own team who had various challenges of their own. There was Miguel, who swam with a prosthetic leg, and Katie, who had overcome a heart condition to compete. These kids saw Sarah as a role model, and how she handled this moment would teach them something important about courage and resilience. Outside the locker room, the pool deck had taken on an almost reverent atmosphere. Swimmers from other teams were warming up quietly, but many kept glancing toward the area where Sarah had disappeared, clearly hoping she would return to compete. The crowd remained largely in place, and there was a sense that everyone understood they might be witnessing something historic, not because of a broken record, but because of a broken barrier. Amanda Chen had returned to the warm-up pool, but she wasn't focusing on her own preparation anymore. Instead, she found herself hoping that Sarah would choose to race, because she realized that competing against someone with such obvious courage would make her own performance more meaningful, regardless of who touched the wall first. The other swimmers in the event were having similar thoughts, understanding that they were part of something larger than individual achievement. As the minutes passed, Sarah felt her perspective slowly beginning to shift. The shame and embarrassment were still there, but they were being joined by something else. A growing realization that this moment didn't have to be the end of her story. It could be the beginning of a new chapter, one where she competed not despite her differences but because of the strength they had given her. After 30 minutes of deliberation, support, and soul-searching, Sarah made her decision. She stood up from the bench, looked at her mother, her best friend, her coach, and her doctor, and announced that she was going to race. The words came out stronger than she felt, but saying them aloud made them real. She wasn't going to let this moment define her as a victim. She was going to define it as a victory over fear and shame. The preparation for her return to the pool deck was careful and deliberate. A backup swimsuit was located, and Sarah changed while surrounded by a circle of support that ensured her privacy and dignity. Coach Williams worked with officials to modify the normal protocol, allowing Sarah to enter the competition area when she felt ready rather than being forced to wait exposed on the deck. Every detail was considered to help her feel safe and supported. When Sarah finally emerged from the locker room area, something magical happened. The entire facility erupted in applause, not the polite, encouraging applause typically given to athletes, but a thunderous, heartfelt ovation that seemed to come from every person in the building. Swimmers from competing teams joined in, coaches from rival schools clapped enthusiastically, and parents in the stands wiped tears from their eyes as they witnessed true courage in action. Sarah walked to her lane with her head held high, acknowledging the crowd with waves and smiles that gradually became more genuine as she felt the overwhelming support surrounding her. The fear was still there, but it was now accompanied by something much stronger, a sense of pride in who she was and what she had overcome to reach this moment. The scars on her back were no longer a source of shame, but a testament to her strength. Amanda Chen approached Sarah at the starting blocks and extended her hand for a pre-race handshake that lasted longer than usual. She whispered words of respect and encouragement that only Sarah could hear, creating a moment of connection between competitors that transcended rivalry. The other swimmers in the race followed suit, each offering their own gestures of support and admiration for Sarah's courage in choosing to compete. The race official called the swimmers to their marks, and Sarah took her position on the starting block. As she looked down the length of the pool, she felt a calmness settle over her that was different from her usual pre-race composure. This wasn't just about winning a race. Anymore, it was about proving to herself and everyone, watching that courage looks like continuing forward even when you feel exposed and vulnerable. The starting signal echoed through the facility, and 8 swimmers launched themselves backward into the water. Sarah's start was powerful and clean, and she quickly established herself in the lead group as they began the first length of the race. Her stroke felt smooth and strong, fueled by an emotional energy that she had never experienced before in competition. The crowd noise was unlike anything she had ever heard during a race. At the first turn, Sarah was in second place, just behind Amanda Chen as expected. But something was different about this race. Sarah wasn't swimming her usual tactical race, carefully managing her energy for a strong finish. Instead, she was swimming with pure emotion and determination, holding nothing back from the very beginning. Her stroke rate was higher than normal, but her technique remained flawless. By the halfway point of the race, Sarah had pulled even with Amanda, and the 2 swimmers were clearly separating themselves from the rest of the field. The crowd was on its feet, sensing that they were witnessing something special. Sarah's family was screaming encouragement from the stands, while swimmers from her own team were jumping up and down on the pool deck, creating an atmosphere of pure excitement and support. As they approached the final turn, Sarah made her move. She had always been known for her powerful finishing kick, but this time she reached deeper than ever before, finding reserves of strength that came from years of overcoming challenges much more difficult than any swimming race. She pulled ahead of Amanda by half a body length as they turned for the final 50 meters. The last length of the race became a battle of wills between 2 extraordinary athletes, but Sarah was swimming for something larger than personal achievement. Every stroke was powered by the realization that she was no longer hiding who she was celebrating it. The scars on her back weren't weaknesses to be concealed, but strengths to be honored, and with each powerful stroke, she was telling her story to everyone watching. With 25 meters to go, Sarah held her lead, but Amanda was fighting back with everything she had. The crowd noise reached a crescendo as both swimmers gave everything they had in pursuit of the wall. Sarah could feel Amanda beside her, matching her stroke for stroke, but she also felt something else. A peace and confidence that came from competing as her complete, authentic self for the first time in her life. The final 10 meters seemed to last forever and pass in an instant simultaneously. Sarah's hand slammed into the wall just ahead of Amanda's, and the scoreboard confirmed what the crowd already knew. Sarah had not only won the race, but had broken the state record by nearly 2 seconds. But the time on the scoreboard was secondary to the triumph of spirit that everyone had witnessed. The aftermath of Sarah's victory was unlike anything anyone at the meet had ever experienced. As she climbed out of the pool, dripping wet and breathing hard from her record-breaking performance, the standing ovation continued for nearly 5 minutes. Amanda Chen was the first to congratulate her, pulling Sarah into a hug that spoke volumes about the mutual respect between two fierce competitors who had just pushed each other to greatness. The medal ceremony that followed became an emotional celebration of human resilience. As Sarah stood on the top step of the podium, the state record certificate in her hands and the gold medal around her neck, she finally understood that this day had become about much more than swimming. When the national anthem played, there wasn't a dry eye in the facility, including Sarah's own. She had not only achieved her athletic dream, but had discovered something profound about the power of authenticity and courage. In the days following the meet, Sarah's story spread far beyond the swimming community. News outlets picked up the story of the young woman who had turned a moment of vulnerability into triumph, and social media was flooded with messages from people around the world who had been inspired by her courage. Families dealing with spina bifida and other conditions reached out to share their own stories and thank Sarah for showing them what was possible. The scholarship offers that had already been coming. Sarah's way increased dramatically, but now they came with a different tone. College coaches weren't just interested in her swimming ability. They were impressed by her character and leadership potential. Several universities specifically mentioned wanting her to be part of their programs because of the positive impact she could have on other student athletes facing challenges. Dr. Chen contacted Sarah a week after the meet with an unexpected opportunity. A major children's hospital had reached out about the possibility of Sarah becoming a spokesperson for young patients with spina bifida and other spinal conditions. They had seen how her story was inspiring families and wanted to explore ways to share her message of hope and determination with children who were facing similar medical challenges. Sarah's relationship with her teammates and competitors evolved in beautiful ways following the meet. Instead of treating her differently because of what they had learned about her medical history, they began opening up about their own struggles and challenges. The swimming community became more inclusive and supportive, with Sarah's courage creating space for others to be more authentic about their own journeys. Amanda Chen and Sarah developed a friendship based on mutual respect and shared experiences as elite athletes. They began training together occasionally, pushing each other to new levels of performance while also supporting each other through the pressures of competition. Their rivalry became a positive force that elevated both swimmers and set an example for sportsmanship in their sport. The local newspaper ran a feature story about Sarah that focused not on the dramatic moment at the state meet, but on her years of quiet determination and the support system that had helped her succeed. The article highlighted her parents' sacrifices, Coach Williams' mentorship, and the medical team that had enabled her athletic career. It painted a picture of a community coming together to support a young person's dreams. Sarah's perspective on her scars underwent a complete transformation. Where once she had seen them as marks of difference to be hidden, she now understood them as symbols of strength to be honored. She began speaking at youth swimming clinics and medical conferences, sharing her story to help others understand that physical differences don't have to limit dreams or define identities. The impact of Sarah's story extended into her academic life as well. She chose to write her college application essays about the importance of resilience and authenticity, topics that resonated with admissions officers who were looking for students with both talent and character. Her essays spoke about learning to compete, not despite her differences but because of the strength they had given her. As Sarah prepared for her final high school swimming season, she carried herself with a confidence that was new and powerful. She no longer worried about hiding her scars or managing others' perceptions of her condition. Instead, she focused on continuing to improve as an athlete while also using her platform to inspire others facing similar challenges. The state championship meet had been intended as the culmination of Sarah's high school swimming career, but instead it became the beginning of a new chapter. She had learned that true victory comes not from hiding our vulnerabilities, but from finding the courage to compete authentically, scars and all. The moment that had initially felt like her worst nightmare had become the foundation for her greatest triumphs, both in and out of the pool. Years later, when Sarah looked back on that day, she would remember not the embarrassment or fear, but the incredible support she had received and the realization that her story could help others. The scars on her back had become her source of strength, and the moment of unwanted exposure had led to a life of purposeful openness about the challenges and triumphs that make us who we are.